Hey guys, it's Britt with Talks with POC. Thank you for coming to this second episode that we have. This episode will feature obviously a conversation between myself and a family friend of mine. I've known this individual for probably over 15 years, so I'm really excited for you guys to hear their story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And for all my black people and people of color out there, remember, this is for us. Let our voices be heard.
Hey,
Hey, what's that?
not too much. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good.
Like I said, I'm super excited to have you here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to have these conversations with me. Like we've talked about before, I think it's really important for all of our stories to be heard as people of color. Let's just jump right into it. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Obviously, whatever you want to share with us that you're comfortable with. Where you're from. Some background on your upbringing, if you grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods or a diverse setting, and how all of that kind of shaped you into who you are today.
So, my name is Michael, and I was pretty much born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, South Side, and from the beginnings of my life, I lived a pretty good life. I lived a really good life. Great mom, great dad. My sisters, my family has been like a huge structure in my life, and the areas that I lived in was like pretty much it was very diverse. So I got to see like really much like pretty much different cultures in my neighborhood. But like I think it was maybe when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Like my grandparents lived in Apple Valley, and that was really my first introduction to Caucasian.
Okay, so let me pause you real quick here. For people who are maybe not from Minnesota, Apple Valley is just a suburb, maybe like 25 minutes south of the city, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Really, my introduction to Caucasians out here was it was very like kind of culture shock in a way. But I didn't, as a kid, you didn't really like put two and two together. I just looked at them as like, oh, it's like other kids that are my age, but they just don't look like me. And just I didn't like put anything together at that time, because when you're at that age, you don't really really think too much into it. You're just like, oh, more kids just to play with. And it's just like I became friends with a lot of the neighborhood kids. They all were cool with me. And actually one of my good friends actually used to live across the street from my grandparents' house, and I still talk to her to this day. And she was like one of the first people I met, and I used to always go over their house, just play with them, and then they used to like come in my yard and play with me. And we all went to school together, and then we just bonded like that. So it was just like for me at that age, I didn't what we're seeing today. I never even put the correlation together at that time.
Right. I mean, it's hard to as a like you said, you're a young kid. We don't have the resources to be able to comprehend that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think you definitely aren't alone in that thought process.
Right, right.
You mentioned growing up, and even the kids in your neighborhood. You grew up in a very diverse setting. Do you think that those kids that you grew up with, do you think they grew up, you know, fighting for change and knowing that racism is wrong, especially since they grew up in a diverse community?
Yes, yes and no.
You got a little hesitant.
Yeah, because I think what it was that like some people, like I'll give you kind of a little brief background. Like my mom has worked in the healthcare setting for almost since I've been born, and my dad was an ex veteran in the army.
Okay.
So their thing was that they wanted their children to be in an environment where they just basically just raising us to as upstanding citizens. And they gave us like the best proper teaching that we could. Uh, Coincidentally, my mom and dad ended up divorcing. At the time, it was like really hard to kind of like really comprehend, because it was just like the most important to a male, especially a black male, is to have a father figure in the household. And you know, my mom ended up having to play both roles with my dad. But even like with the talks today with my mom, I tell my mom all the time, like you can't you can raise a boy into a man, but you gotta have a father to teach him how to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And like to this day, I still talk to my dad. I talk to my dad all the time, and me and him have had conversations about just everything in life, and then just coming to the conclusion that, like, yeah, I'm exactly to the T, just like him, personality and everything. And we have these conversations, and it's just like, yeah, the importance of a male father figure in the household will shape every black man in America.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will have that and turn out great, and some people won't have that and still turn out great. But it's just a matter of choice. And a lot of decisions I had to make in my life, it was like all based on choices.
Right.
So, yeah. So pretty much that's pretty much the gist of my upbringing and everything.
Thank you for sharing that. And like I said, I mainly asked you that because, you know, I want everybody watching, listening to this to get to know who you are as a person and how you grew up and how that shapes who you are today. So all the background information I think is really important. And again, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
I want to give credit to my grandma and my grandfather. God rest my grandfather's soul, because he was actually like the one that, like, when my father divorced and he wasn't there as much as he should have been, my grandfather stepped in and he kind of like molded me into what I am today.
Absolutely. I think, you know, I was going to touch on that when you had mentioned like wanting and needing a father figure to teach you some of those things. I think especially as we continue progressing in this world, like you mentioned, all families might not be able to have that dynamic, but it doesn't mean you can't get what you need. You fortunately were able to get that from your grandfather, so I think that's great. One thing I want to know from you is, tell me what it means to you to be Black in America. And then as a follow-up, I want to ask you, what do you think it means to society to be Black in America?
Well, straight up and down, I can't rub my skin off. I can't rub the color off my skin. That's never going to change. So everyone's going to have to deal with it. But what it means to me is that we have a lot of ideas and a lot of opportunity out here to get our voices heard. And for me and others that are like me, we have the ability to create. Like we're some of us, like everyone can be a curator, but we're like the ones on the front, basically on the front line. So as far as just everything, like we have Black lawmakers, we have Black politicians, we have doctors, nurses, pharmacy techs, anything in any broad spectrum. We have the ability to just basically say, like, shoot, if anyone else that don't look like us can do it, we can do it. You know,
right.
we just put the work in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and as for like what society means for Black men and Black people as a whole, we're loved. We're really loved by who we are, and then like it's even like more gratifying when I see like a Caucasian person and a person of color just simply having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful when the conversation is just like goes into like the broad spectrum of like how you were raised. Those are like some of the conversations I love having, because it's just the fact that you're opening up and trying to figure out like how to not even really how to approach them, it's just basically like finding a common bond. Because my best friend is Caucasian, and we've been good friends for over 10 plus years. And our common bond was music. And after that, it was just kind of like Yeah, I got you, bro. I got you. And it's just been like that. And for anyone else, like I got plenty of Caucasian friends. I got plenty of people of color, and it's just like it's always been love. And I always teach it. They teach me something, and I teach them something, and it's just like it's just a family bond, really.
Right. And I think, I think it's really awesome that you're speaking out on the experience that you have had with non-black people, and it sounds like, for the most part, those experiences specifically have been good. So my question for you is, when I'd asked you, what do you think society thinks of black men in America, or black people in America in general, I guess. You said you were loved.
I should really clarify that one. We're loved, but we're kind of I don't even know a good word to even like kind of like it's.
I think it's almost like it feels like sometimes like people love to love black people, but they also love to hate black people at the same time. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. That makes absolute perfect sense.
Like you want to love us when it's sometimes, not everybody. Some people choose to love us when it's convenient for them, but when it's not convenient for them, we're still not seeing that same love. If that makes sense.
Exactly, and I take like a D.L. Hewley quote, and it just rang out, and it's kind of like it's like it may sound like really harsh, but I think with a lot like with this topic, I think it was like what he said was the worst place for black people or people of color to be in is in white people's imaginations.
Mm-hmm.
And
so one more time. The worst place for black people and people of color to be is in white people's imagination. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I feel that.
This wasn't my words. This was D.L. Hewley's words. And I sat back and like just kind of like reflected off that and just like really thinking. I was like, that actually does make sense, because some people don't believe in some of the stuff that's out in society today. But then there's others that, like, for instance, like if you live in International Falls, they've never really, like, a city trip to them is an adventure. Like a city trip to us is just, well, we're going to the cities. Like if someone were to tell me, like, for instance, it'd be like, if International Falls and I go up there and they'd just be like, oh, what's it like at the Mall of America? And I just simply say it's just a mall.
Right.
Just a mall to me. Like you're not gonna miss it. I drive past it every day. So I think a lot of people are like really like out of touch. Like if you're not really in the cities like that, you're gonna be possibly out of touch if you're not like familiar with anything. Even like just how like being like in a suburban area, you don't really see like a lot of people out here like really going to the cities like that. You know, unless it's like something like okay, we're going out to the bar, or we're going to the club, or we're just gonna go to the park, and it's kind of a culture shock for them. So yeah, it's just pretty much it's kind of like a love and hate kind of thing with black people, with society, with black people in society.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you said it perfectly. Like people who live in the suburbs, they're not really going to the city. And I think, people stick to what they know, right? They stick to what they're familiar with. So even though there are suburbs that are 15, 20 minutes away from the city, people still fail to go there. It's not far, but even by them going there and just immersing themselves in a little bit of culture, it's not, we're not asking them to drive like 6-7 hours or get on a plane or whatever. It's, you can find culture 15 minutes away from where you are, but yet people still stick to what they know.
And I've been like going to cabins like lately in the past month, and every time I'll take a trip out to the cabin, it'll be like, let's say like a 2-hour drive, and I know that I'm like I am definitely not in the cities. This is like, because I'll still get culture shock. Like, what? Where am I at?
Yeah.
And I'm just like looking around, and I'm like looking around, like, is there anyone that looks like me out here? And I think I've seen like maybe 1 or 2 people out there that look like me, and I'm just like, what? And then the first thing I just want to walk up to them and like, what the fuck are y'all doing out here? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse my language. Like, what are y'all doing out here? All right. But yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah, for sure. You so you had mentioned kind of when I'd asked you about your background and stuff, you were mentioning your childhood and some stories about your parents. So that kind of leads me into another question that I wanted to ask you, and that is, if you can remember, what is your earliest experience in dealing with racism, and did you ever see your parents go through any of that as a child, and what did that feel like? What impact did that have on you as a small child?
As a child, as a child, it was like kind of like hard to like to put the correlation because you're not really thinking of that. You're thinking of like the human of people. Yeah. But if I can pinpoint something, I think there was a time when I was like maybe like 5 years old, and I believe I was playing on like a swing set at a park or whatever. And there was this kid that was just like running around, and me being like the nice kid that I am, and I'm just like, hey, you want to play? And he kind of like gave me this look, and it's kind of like ran off, and I kept like running after, like, you want to play, kind of like being persistent, and he was just like kind of just like getting like really at me, like, get away from me, like da da da. I'm like, oh, and I didn't like really get that at that time, and I kind of like cried, and I was just like, oh, that's messed up. He don't like me, so. That was like probably my earliest that I can remember. But as far as like my mom and my dad, not so much. Not so much that I've never really like asked them about that.
Can you think of a moment where you had to deal with racism among somebody you thought was your friend? And how did you deal with that situation? If they said a racist comment or, whatever it may be, have you dealt with that in your life before?
Actually, when Trump got elected.
Tell us what happened.
Yeah, that was like damn near like nuclear level, right there. Like when all that happened, because it was like the first time the people I used to like kick it with, drink with, party with,
right,
it was like all good before, but then like once Trump got in, I start seeing people's like true colors come out, and I'm just like, where did this come from? And then when I think it was when Trayvon Martin got killed, and then Black Lives Matter movements began. That's when I started seeing people kind of being like, oh, all lives matter, blue lives matter, and I'm like sitting there arguing with them, like, how is that even feasible, like, to even really think that, like, I get it, like, if people are going to say like all lives matter, that no crap, no like all lives do matter. Nobody's like denying that, but if all lives matter, then like Black lives are just as important as all lives, because it seems like more Black lives are being erased off this earth than most white people. So I would get into these like these silly ass debates, and it just conjured up to where it was just like in my head, like, Dave may have said some really nut shit behind closed doors, and I'm just like I'm not really like really understanding it, and I'm just like, okay. And then afterwards I was just like, no, fuck them. I don't even. They're not my friends. They're really not my friends, because if they don't want to hear my experiences of where I come from, then it's kind of just wasting words and breath, just to keep trying to be like beating in their head like we're all in this together, but it's like some people are just oneself with it. So yeah, it was just like I lost a lot of friends behind it, like that I thought were friends, but it's just like I don't really care anymore now. It's just like it is what it is. It's like if that's how you feel, then whatever.
Right. And I think, to kind of add on to what you said, obviously all lives matter, but like when people's response, when you say like Black Lives Matter, and people's response is all lives matter or blue lives matter, like, first of all, again, like we just said, we never said that those lives didn't matter, but it seems as though we have to keep reminding America that Black lives matter, because our people are being killed due to police brutality at a rate that is 3 times higher than white people. So when we say Black lives matter, that is what we mean. We continue to have to fight for our rights in this world, to be treated equally amongst our peers, but yet we're somehow in the wrong for saying Black lives matter, which is fucking fucked up. Like,
and it's insane too, because like then you see like people putting up like the most like idiotic statistics I've ever seen before, where it just says like more police killings, white people have more police killings than black people. I'm like, no, that's definitely not true. A video that I saw like not too long ago, some guy was like had a gun, waving a gun at the cops, and the cops are just sitting there, and he's like yelling, "Fuck you, fuck you." All they did was just like calm him down and subdue him, and then they just threw him in handcuffs and threw him in the car and went on their way, and nobody died. But then like we keep seeing the same reoccurrence, and we keep echoing the same reoccurrence over and over again, because it's just like now it's like everything's all on camera. For instance, I could literally, and this is like hypothetically, I could literally, like, for example, if I see a vase and like if a camera's recording me and I see a vase and I knock the vase over and I just say I didn't do it, someone's gonna say you did it, if that makes any sense. But
Yep.
I look at like, you see like the Philando Castile shooting. We clearly watched this. He was complying to every order that the cop was doing, and that's how it's supposed to be. But the cop was so nervous for whatever reason. As soon as he said like I have a legal firearm that's registered to me, and he's like, don't reach for it, and he's like, I'm not reaching for it. Right there, it just told you right there. I'm like, a lot of these police officers, they're not prepared, they're not trained. And it is just like, I feel like a lot of these police officers, if you've never been into a community that you're patrolling, you shouldn't be in that community. I feel like most cops that have been in those communities and know those communities well should be the ones patrolling those communities. But when you patrol them, identify who's a threat and who's not a threat. And most people of color are not a threat. Most white people are really not a threat. Most Latinos, Asians, they're not really a threat, but you won't know it if you identify them. So, yeah, just long story short, yeah, pretty much.
I think, again, to echo that, people of color, they're not even given a chance to prove that they're not a threat. Whereas, how many videos have we watched of young white men shooting up schools, killing dozens of people, and they are apprehended, safely. There's no excessive force or anything, and then we get headlines out, and it's they have mental health issues or whatever. If that's the case, like, that's fine. But when you read our headlines when we don't even, like, times where we haven't even killed dozens of people, anytime we're in the headlines, it's we're thugs, or we didn't do this, we didn't do that, la-di-da-di-da. Like, everybody wants to make excuses to justify our, like, people being killed. And it's like, if people really would just, like, say that shit out loud to themselves, like, I don't even know. I can't even put it into words, like.
Yeah, because we've seen too many of these videos. And I think the fact that, like, a lot of people are so scared to say it because they don't want to, like, get the wrong reaction. But it's just, like, I've been telling a lot of, like, white friends that I'm, like, pretty cool with. I just tell them, like, straight up and down, don't stay silent. It's not hard. Do not stay silent. If it's, like, if you really rock with Black culture and you really support it, and you have friends that don't look like you, they are people of color, and you see things like this, don't stay silent. Just like if you really rock with us, because the same way we would stand up for you is the same way we hope that you stand up for us.
Exactly.
And that's all we ask. And it's just like as far as just like getting getting a good job, just getting a seat at the table so we can articulate our ideas, and then just like have dialogue, just complete dialogue. So, and dialogue is the most important thing right now. And today, right now, for someone to get it, but it's just like a lot of people are just kind of like tone deaf or just go beyond deaf ears and just be like, nah, like I'm gonna stick to what I know. And it's just like, if that's the case, then shoot, let them go, say less. Don't even acknowledge them. Don't even put any more energy into people that just don't really care.
Right, and I think if you, especially like if you, we've been talking about, friends who have said racist things and whatnot, and realizing, okay, those are people we simply don't need in our life. If you're not going to support me, my family, my friends who look like me, then you don't deserve to be in my life, and you can get to step in. Like, exactly. So, okay, I got a question for you.
All right, shoot.
It might be might have 2 parts depending on your answer. How many times, or if you have ever been pulled over or had altercations with the police, even though you knew you weren't doing anything wrong?
Oh my goodness. There's countless times. There's actually like 2 different stories that I vividly can remember. The first story was I want to say it was like 2007.
Okay.
And this was at the time I was working at Mystic Lake Casino, and I was heading home, and my girlfriend at the time, or my ex-girlfriend at the time, she was at my house, and she was at my house like pretty much like all day, just waiting up for me to get home. And I was just like, I get home, and at the time I was smoking weed, and she had bought a bag, so I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, let's run to the store because I just need to go get a Swisher. And I told her, like, she was like, should we bring the weed? I'm like, no, just leave it here. And she was like persistent, like, no, let's bring it with us because like we don't want to come back in the house and then we just smoke in your car or whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. So we take her car, her mom's truck that she was driving, and we drive like down the street to an SA to go get a pack of Swishers, some I think I grabbed like a Gatorade and some gummy, like
gotta stay hydrated.
Like every time. Yeah, and some munchies, pretty much. And I literally tell her to drive. Instead of telling her to drive on the main road to go back to my house, because I just wanted to roll the blunt, and she drives. I tell her like just drive on the front road. So it, like I guarantee by the time I get this rolled, like we'll be at the house. So it didn't take me no time. Now this is about what time this was? Maybe about 11:30, 11:45, something like that at night. So the frontage road where I used to live at used to have cops sitting right in like a little public storage, but you can't really see them because they're just like in a cut. So you will never notice one until you go past. So I go past, I don't even really see anything. So I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. We get maybe about 2 blocks up the street from my house. I see blue lights go up, like whoop whoop. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And I'm looking at my girl. I'm like, you got license? You got insurance? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. I got my license. So it's probably you were just like going a little too fast. So not thinking anything of it. 2 cops got out and pretty much was just asking questions. And mind you, there's like we haven't smoked weed. No, like nothing happened yet at this point. So it doesn't smell like weed. But the cops kept saying it smelled like weed. And I said, no, it doesn't smell like weed. And he was just kind of like look at me like, am I talking to you? And I'm like, no, you're talking to my girl, but I'm telling you, it doesn't smell like weed. I don't know where you get the idea of weed, everything like that. We know there's weed in the car, but we're like obviously being kids and being like hide the weed quick,
Mhm.
like she threw the weed inside like the somehow her ventilation thing in her car was able to snap off, so you could like it's like a hideaway ventilation. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm just like, oh, that's cool, but
Yeah.
whatever. And then they pull us out the car. I tell my girl, do not give them consent to search the car.
Mhm.
For some reason, she doesn't really understand the laws of how everything works, and she ends up giving them consent to search the car. So they search the car. Now, I know it's not my weed. It's her weed, but it's because me and her together,
Right.
we're just going to smoke it together. And sure enough, they find a little hideaway ventilation. They find the weed.
Mhm.
Now, their first instinct is to come to me like, whose weed is this? Where'd you get it from? And I'm like, I don't know whose weed it is. So I'm just plain dumb because I know whose weed it is, but I'm not going to tell the cops because that's...
Yeah. And you're not driving, right? You weren't the driver.
I'm not driving. I'm not driving at all. No. And they were like, we can make your whole day go by easier if you just tell us. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I really don't know whose weed it is.
Mhm.
And she's saying the same thing, like, I don't know whose weed it is. This is my mom's car, so I don't know what's really in this car, blah, blah, blah. And as we're saying that, one of the cops pulls my girl aside to, like, get away from me. So I'm like, what the fuck? So now I'm being searched. And I know what's in my pockets. It's like my wallet and my cell phone. That's it. The bag, the bag from the essay. I knew it had swishers in there. I was getting ready to break them down before the cops got there. So I was just like, what the fuck? And yeah, that was like pretty much what was on me. So they had me behind the car. So they start searching me. I have a hat on. I have a specific hat on that had my nickname on it. And this hat was given to me as a gift. And on the back of the hat, it had my baby sister's initials, TMG5, and that was my baby sister that had passed away when I was 16.
Mhm.
So I had this hat on, and the first thing the cop says was, "Oh, what does that say in the back of your hat? It looks like gang insignia." I'm like, "No, I'm not in a fucking gang." That was my exact reaction because I felt disrespected because you just assumed it was a gang insignia when I just told you, I'm like, no, it's not gang insignia. It's my little sister's initials. She passed away when I was 16.
Mhm.
So he was just kind of scoffed it off, okay, whatever. Yeah, right. And at this point, I'm kind of getting a little hot right now because it's just you're really disrespecting my family. And so as I'm getting a little hot, I'm getting a little mouthy. Out of nowhere, the cop unholstered his gun and puts his gun to the back of my head. And I'm just like, really? Are you serious right now? You're really getting mad because I'm talking back to you? And he's just just tell me, calm down. Now at this point, I have to make a decision at this point. I'm like, I'm pissed, but if I don't calm down and he lets go, I'm dead.
Mhm.
And I haven't seen my mom that night. I haven't even seen my mom all day that day. So the last thing I would want is my mom getting a phone call that her son is dead. So I ended up calming down, and they finally got into their head that nobody said anything. So they ended up giving me and my girlfriend a ticket, this and that, and they sent us on our way. And they ended up taking our weed and all our other shit. And then finally, I told my mom was actually at the house, and I woke her up. I'm like, Mom, yeah, we got pulled over by the cops, and they found some weed. And my mom, it was kind of funny because my mom was half asleep. So she's like, yeah, whatever, okay. And I'm like, okay, whatever, Mom. So then the next morning, I told my mom the story, and she kind of what? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, do you have a court date? And she's like, yeah, I have a court date. So, and first my girl because she wasn't from out here, she was from Winona. So when she got the ticket, she had to take a court date all the way towards somewhere in Rochester.
Okay.
And basically what I didn't know was she was on probation at that time, so she wasn't even supposed to do shit. But they didn't really do nothing to her. But I ended up getting a petty misdemeanor and drug paraphernalia charge. I'm like, what the fuck was the drug paraphernalia charge? And they were like, the pack of cigars. I'm like, cigars are legal. So how? Yeah. So I'm just sitting here stuck, like, what the fuck? And that was like one of the first experiences I had with the cops. The second one, and this one I'm gonna make like pretty, like, kind of like long story short. I was at a club and another ex-girlfriend of mine, again, not knowing where she's at, thought that every bar was the same, and I'm like, no, not every bar is the same. So, and of course she's drunk, and I'm not even like really drunk at this point. And this is like one of my friend's birthday that we're at, and we're downtown, of all places, downtown. We were actually at the 90s. We're actually in the 90s. I left because I got mad about something and walked up the street, and then they came and got me, and we were going to like walk back in, and I kept telling them like they're not going to let us back in even though we just were in there, and they just kept going on like no. I'm like, no, they're not going to let us in. This is not the suburbs. You can do that in the suburbs. In the cities, you can't do that. So she gets mouthy with the bouncer. The bouncer keeps telling her like, no, we can't let you in. Even if you got a band, you just walked out, you have to pay to get back in. So she's getting mouthy, the white privilege, whatever. Fucking. She, for some reason, as she tried to get in the second time, the bouncer grabbed her and snatched her back and like slammed her into a guardrail. So now I'm like, what the fuck? Now I gotta defend my girlfriend.
Right.
And now me and the bouncer are face to face, and me and bouncer get into a fight. Bouncer swings on me, hits me. I don't really feel it at this point. The first punch I didn't feel. The second punch I felt. And then he like tried to slam me. And as I'm getting up, I'm like getting ready to charge at him. As I'm getting ready to get up and charge at him, I get bum rushed by 4 cops. So, and they slam me on the hood of their car, because somehow there was another cop car that flew in that I didn't even see, because everything was moving so quick. And I'm like looking like, what the fuck? Like, for real. And they kept saying like, stop resisting. I'm like, I'm not resisting. Like, what the fuck? I didn't even cause the shit. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So now everyone that's with me is like screaming at the cops, like, get the fuck off me, get the fuck off him, whatever. Now one of my best friends comes out, running, freaking the fuck out, and I'm telling him like, no, do not freak out, because this, like, everybody's fucked up. This could go completely bad. So now they got me in handcuffs, they got me detained, and they're talking to me like I'm dumb or something like that. Like, what happened? I'm like, well, the bouncer threw my girlfriend into a guardrail, and I was defending my girlfriend. That was it. That was really the whole gist of it. But the girl that I was with my girlfriend at that time, she got really mouthy, and I like freaked out and like, shut the fuck up. Like, for real, shut the fuck up. And they're walking me to the ambulance because they thought I had a concussion. I was like, I don't have a concussion. I know what a concussion feels like. This is not a concussion at all. They were like, are you sure you don't need to go out? No, I don't need to go to the fucking hospital. And, they're just kind of being mouthy, like, oh, yeah, well, dude kind of fucked you up. I'm like, have you looked at me and then look at him? Like, I don't know anyone my size that's going to fight a guy that's 6'5", 280 pounds.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, most guys will just, like, cower out. Especially if it's your girlfriend, like, yeah, you have no choice. I'm going to fight you. I don't give a damn how big you are. And, yeah. Police slammed me into the car. And, yeah, that was pretty much my whole story. I had dealing with that. And it just kind of was just, like, kind of chuckling under the breath and everything like that. And then, again, at that point, I had to, like, humble myself really quick, because I already knew that if I were to react, this could go a completely different way. So, yeah, that was like my experience, pretty much.
I think
dealing with that.
I think that's pretty telling. Is we're always told to be quiet, right, in front of cops. Like, we can't open our mouth, but it's like, why not? why are you trying to silence us when we're speaking out, or even just trying to explain what's happening?
We're never in the right. We're never in the right, even if you have to explain something to the cops, because now they just conjured up an idea like, oh, this person's causing trouble. We're like, no, like get the story straight.
Mm-hmm.
They show up, and whoever called them or however they got there, it's always they automatically assume that we're doing something wrong, and they won't even let us explain that we're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I'm just still to this day baffled. Like, how the hell did y'all get to me that fast? Like, because I didn't see, all I seen was people, and next thing you know, I'm getting bum rushed by 4 cops. So I'm like, what the fuck? So
they come out of the woodwork real quick, for sure.
Oh yeah. It was just like, oh, it's like, oh, y'all here? What the fuck? Like, damn, okay, for little ass me, like, shoot, I know I'm skinny, but Jesus, like, tell me, fuck, I'm trying to tell you the whole story. Like, but whatever.
I also think, like, what if somebody puts their hands on anybody's significant other, like, what would your response be to that? You would, no one, I can't even think of, if you ask people that question, no one's gonna say, oh, I'm not gonna do anything, I'm just gonna sit there, like, I guarantee if somebody put their hands on my significant other, I would not just sit there and be quiet. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and every last encounter with the police, I was never quiet. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? Like, man, like, come on now. So yeah, just dealing with that is just like, it was tough. It was tough at the time, and like, I was angry about it. I'm still kind of like a little peeved, but that was like years ago, so I'll get over it. But it stuck with me for the rest of my life. So it is what it is.
I mean, we all have our stories. Like, these aren't going to be stories that you will forget. They're so, the story you had shared earlier with the gun being to your head. I've never had a gun pointed to my head. I know many people have, and
it's a scary. It's like one of the scariest. It's like your heart just drops.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I can't believe somebody really just this, let alone a cop that's supposed to serve and protect, just pulled a gun on me for a simple traffic stop. Like, are you serious?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a scary feeling. It's a very scary feeling that I don't feel as protected as, or just people of color don't feel as protected.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just like animals to a lot of them.
We are animals, things. There's no, like, our lives just, we've been talking about this whole phone call. Our lives matter too. Black lives matter. Like, we shouldn't have to beg to be treated like humans. We should not have to beg. We've been begging for far too long, and it is ridiculous that we are still having to have these conversations after hundreds of years. But
and it's like, some people will hear it, some people won't. Some people have the same experiences, some people don't. But it's our experience, and it's like, what did we learn from that? It's a kind of a learning lesson. But it's just like, I'm sick of learning stuff like that.
Yeah,
it just hurts my soul.
Now is a time where it's time for others to learn our stories, to learn what we go through, and work on checking their privilege, realizing what their privilege means, and then figuring out how they can help fight with us, because it's gonna take all of us.
It's simple. Just wake up. Wake up. Because this is our reality, our unfortunate reality. And it's just like, every day when I get up, say a prayer, get ready for work, the last thing on my mind should be saying another quick prayer that, please let me make it home. Please don't let this cop get behind me. Even if I have good insurance and license, I'm still terrified that if I get pulled over, that something's going to happen, even with the credentials, and I'm not doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a scary feeling. It's an absolute scary feeling.
I think, speechless. It makes my heart hurt so bad. So I can't even say anything back to that. I do have one last question I want to ask you, and obviously you can add on anything else. But I would like to hear from you. Tell me one stereotype about people of color that you just want to put an end to right here, right now.
Right here, right now.
Yeah. There's a ton of stereotypes floating around about people of color. Obviously, you and I know they're not true, but
yeah, everyone loves chicken. Everyone loves fried chicken. Stop asking me, do I want fried chicken? No, I don't. Don't ask me, do I want fried chicken? I'm gonna get fried chicken. Like, everyone loves chicken, and it's just like, that's one stereotype. There's other stereotypes. I can't even, like, there's so many to even like just choose from, and it's just like, it's so infuriating. Like, one of the things I've been like I think someone recently asked me is like, if someone like makes like a really good statement, I say facts.
Yeah.
And someone asked me like, why do black people say facts? I'm like, I don't know, we just say facts. Like it sounds better if like, oh, that's real. It sounds way better than someone saying, oh, that's real. I'd rather say facts. Right. Or big facts. And it's just like, if I say it, then I agree with it. Mm-hmm. So stop asking me.
Like you just said, people ask you, why do black people say facts, or why do black people do whatever? For literally everybody and anybody watching this, don't ask black people about how and why black people do what it is they do, because we are not the entire race. We cannot speak for our entire race. If you want to ask a question about what I do specifically, then you better make sure you're directing that towards me and not, hey, why do black people, like, no one, like, I'm not the spokesperson. You're not the spokesperson. Like,
yeah, it's hilarious too when they ask you like, what do you do for a living? And then automatically they kind of assume like, oh, do you work in like a warehouse or anything like that? And I'm like, no, I work in a pharmacy. I'm a pharmacy tech. Mm-hmm. And then just the bewildering look on their faces is like priceless.
Yeah.
Because and then they'd be like, how? Like, you work in a pharmacy? Like, yeah, you had to go to school for that. I'm like, yeah, I went to school for that.
I can go to school. You know? Thank you very much.
Yeah, we can go to school. I'm pretty intelligent. If you really get to know me a little bit more, like, I wear Jordan. Yeah, I wear basketball shorts. I wear white tees. I wear urban gear, and I hate that word urban so much because I think it's like another word to say the N-word. Mm-hmm. It's like a term to say the N-word, basically. It's urban. I'm like, okay, well, yes. It is weird if someone else that don't look like me that says urban. I kind of like chuckle to myself. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. So, yeah, it's just, I'm just like anyone else. The only difference is my skin color doesn't rub off, and I have different ways. I have different views and ways of how I live, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and it's just like not every, and then it's just like, do you play basketball? I'm like, yeah. Like, does every black person play basketball? I'm like, no. And even if they do, they're probably not that good. Right. And it's just like not every person plays basketball. Not every person plays football. There's a lot of people that actually just sit in the house and literally study and read. Like, they go on walks. Like, my biggest thing that I do, like, kind of break the stereotype as far as just like sports or anything like that, I go play disc golf.
Nice.
Disc golf is like kind of like something that was like taught to me by a couple people, like by a group of people, and they were like, you ain't never played disc golf? I'm like, no, and I tried it for the first time and I loved it, and I invested money just to go buy disc, and I just go to the park and just play disc golf and just have my music just blaring, just playing disc golf and just enjoying like the outdoors in the wilderness. Like, yeah, I do stuff like this. It's not about 2K, Madden, and everything like that. I really come outside. So America, we do a lot. We do just the same stuff as a lot of people do. You just don't really bother to even consider it or even look. Just be like, what? He's playing disc golf? Like, well, I don't really see black people that play disc golf. I'm like, shoot, we didn't expect Tiger Woods to be one of the greatest golfers of all time, and look how that turns out.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do anything if you put your mind to it, and
That's
if you
right.
open your mind. Yeah, just open your mind. So yeah, that's where I stand on that.
That's right. I think that is the perfect way to conclude this call. Like, we can do anything. We can do anything and everything that we see anybody else doing. Just because our skin looks different doesn't mean we can't do those things. So facts. All right, Michael. Again, thank you so much for coming on Talks with POC. Really appreciate you sharing your story with me and with everybody who is going to listen to this. And I guess just hopefully they will take a little bit away from this conversation and in hopes to change their behavior, help fight change with us. And maybe if we make enough of these videos and enough people see them, who knows, things will get better. That's my only hope is for things to get better.
Add a little tidbit, like what I'm doing right now. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you bringing me on your platform, and like we've known each other like for some years now, because obviously with our families knowing each other.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm doing right now is outside of like me being at work and just helping out with the community, because I've been back and forth at 38th in Chicago with everything with George Floyd, just like helping out, cleaning, and just sitting, like just going to the protests and the rallies, just listening to people's words and their experiences, and it's a beautiful thing. But also, not only that, just that, like I have a podcast that I've been doing for the last 2 months right now, and it's called the Biggie and Ziggy Music Cafe. And you can find us on Facebook, and like you can find us on Station Head. So I want to put that tidbit out, and we talk about basically the same thing, basically everything like current events, and a lot of music. And we just like we play a lot of music, and it's just me, myself, my boy Biggie, my boy C4, and my boy Tip. And we just come together collectively, just put our viewpoints and just share it with the masses. So for anyone that's watching this, I'm sorry I'm doing a plug on your platform, but I have to do it.
Oh no, that's what it's for.
We're all in here together. But yeah, come follow us at Biggie Ziggy Music Cafe, because you're gonna get a lot more. And this platform right here is the most beautiful platform, and I'm so grateful and appreciative for you to have me on here.
For sure. Thank you. And I'll put your podcast, I'll figure out how to link it or whatever. I'll put it in the comments so anyone who's interested can check out what you're doing, because I think it's important to see, what people of color are doing, because we, like we've said, we do things. We do lots of things. So
yeah, we're sharing with the world.
Right,
we are sharing. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Stay safe. If you're going out doing anything, please stay safe, stay alert. That's all I can ask for.
Oh yeah, that's all day. That is all day. All right. Well, God bless you.
You too. Take care of yourself.
All right.
All right. Bye.